Hi again, and welcome to another episode of the Government Transformation Show, the podcast for public sector changemakers. Joining me today are Jonathan Bradley, Martin Nash, and Pete Cox from Granicus, and we're going to be exploring ideas around connected government. How do we join up services? How do we join up the way we work internally? And then most importantly, how do we join up the outcomes for citizens so that they can enjoy a one-stop shop of public services and a better experience of interacting with government and other public sector agencies? A big challenge that we're trying to follow in the public sector to pursue those goals and experiences that the private sector have made such ground over in the past few years. So the guys are going to share with us some insights on what works and why, where they think the current public sector state is in this arena, and what we can do to make more improvements down the line. Loads to get into, so let's jump into that conversation right now. So, Team Granicus, welcome to the Government Transformation Show. Pete, Martin, Jonathan, thanks for joining us. Great to have a collective of you here to explore the really interesting issues around connected government, what that means, what benefits it can deliver for citizens, how to get better at it if you're working in the government department yourself. So lots to cover, but as ever, we want to start by understanding your own role in this space, how you're working at Granicus, how you're working with public sector. So we'd really just like to get a sense from each of you of kind of your key areas of responsibility. So Jonathan, maybe we could start with you, if you could just do a brief intro and explain a bit about how your role works at Granicus.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Tim. Sure. I head up the Granicus Experience Group in the UK. So we're part of the company that works with government to help them to create better citizen experiences, primarily on our technology. So our mission really is to help government build better customer experiences, get more value out of their civic engagement technology. And I think, the short version of that is, creating personalized government experiences as best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And always pleasing to hear that the focus is around end results and end users. Everything else is just a means to an end, right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
absolutely. Martin, welcome as well. Perhaps you could just explain about how you're working with public sector as part of Granicus.
Thanks, Tim. So yes, I'm part of the central government business development team. I'm one half of it. My colleague Pete below is getting a warm intro from me. Will continue after me. But I've worked as a supplier in this marketplace for about 23 years, and I've seen some significant changes over that time period. And I'm sure that we'll touch on these today in the podcast. Our vision is all about outcomes.
Yeah, great to hear that re-emphasised as well. And Pete, welcome.
Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Good.
So I'm, as Martin mentioned, the other half of the central government business development team here at Granicus, working very closely with Jonathan towards the GXG values as well. I've been working in central government and public sector for just over a decade, helping our customers understand their true positioning on the digital journey and helping them create, as Jonathan mentioned, the stepping stones to help them achieve their success, their strategic outcomes.
Great. So as I mentioned up top, we're going to delve into a topic that I suppose is referenced a lot, but maybe doesn't necessarily mean the same things to the same people. So keen to unpack some of that. So we're going to talk about this idea of connected government. So I'm going to throw a big one at Jonathan straight away, but I mean, what does that mean to you when you hear that term? Because I sense that not everybody has the same ideas around that.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you thinking about what Granicus stands for, very much, going back to like our slogans, if you like, we're all about reaching, informing, serving, and engaging people. And for us, that's a big, that's mainly encompasses what connected government is about. But I think if you look at it maybe the other way around, it's also, it manifests itself day to day in people's lives. So, when people reach out for help, when they apply for a new driving license, but also when they want to participate in society. So if they want to take part in a government public consultation, for example, so that's more that deeper engagement. And it can also be during life-changing events, key stages in life, and critically when the government also needs citizens to behave in a particular way. So that connection can manifest itself so many different ways, and that's what's really exciting about this, the transformation summit, the whole thing around public purpose technology, improving the places where we live, work and play is how I often think about it. And that connection, those personalized experiences is a big part of all of that.
And the idea that maybe was prevalent, however many years ago, that a member of the public should have to understand and navigate through all these different government agencies and entities in order to sort of interact and get the things they need out of public services seems so anachronistic now, but it was the case. And so that idea of connecting and removing barriers and removing kind of badges and allowing people to just hit that one-stop shop or single front door, whatever your term of choice might be, seems to be the kind of key goal now. And so when we talk about the kind of joining up, removing the barriers, connecting, all of those, insert adjectives and verbs of your choice, what does that mean to Granicus? And I suppose, how do you then start them to achieve those goals? Because clearly there are lots of benefits, but it's not always obvious how to get started.
Yeah, it's I think if you think about society and better outcomes in society, that's so intertwined with better citizen experiences. So many of the problems that we, like the collective we that we face, are tackled by those online processes, online communications, online processes. And if government isn't joined up in its approach, then people might opt out. As citizens, they might churn, if you like. We talk about churn a lot in the tech industry, but as citizens, they might churn because we're making it hard for them to get stuff done. So that it matters so much, because government needs to be there as the first choice, the first port of call when people need to do things in their life. So that's certainly one of the big reasons why joined up government matters so much. And then expectations as well amongst the general public, they're quite high when it comes to online experiences. I mean, you read a lot about that, in our world, about how there's it's partly because of COVID, but more so than that, people have such high expectations of online services. And many people will judge government based on those experiences. And if they're not joined up, if they're not that sort of seamless process, then they lose faith in public services. And so that whole conversation about joined up government becomes so important. And so at Granicus, we aim to help by making government more human centered, making it more data driven, helping it focus more on outcomes, and that comes back to personal experiences on the web. And how we're helping is via the Granicus technology, but also by supplementing that with the Granicus experience group. So we can actually add the strategy to the technology. Even though we can produce things that are low code and no code, you still need the strategy, you still need the behavior change, you still need the confidence to change services and take them online in a good way. Lots of our customers talk about resisting the temptation to put a bad service offline and just create a bad service online, and no one wants to do that, and that can be really difficult. They need a lot of help with that. So it's the two together that is really how we can help.
Yeah, and unsurprisingly, as you've alluded to there, if you want to join up the external experience, you've got to join up the way you're operating internally as well, more often than not. So I'm curious then, let's maybe, probably unfair, but let's mark the homework of UK public sector in 2022 in terms of how well do they work together, how well do they design and join up services, and this is about where we are now, and it's not about people's desire or will, but it's where we've come from and how much progress we've made. So Martin, what are your kind of key takes at the moment on how well government organisations are working together and collaborating?
Well, being one of the older people here, and having mentioned I've worked in central government for 23 years, I've seen changes across the organisation. And I can remember 23 years ago, organisations were trying to work out how they could build bigger car parks so that customers could park on site and queue up at terminals and desks to meet with people to cover whatever their problem would be, whether it was social benefits, employment, or planning applications, or any of those areas like that. We then moved to the internet age, and obviously everyone said this is absolutely great. So everyone started to use PDFs and put them online. And of course, the populace have moved from having large desktop type machines to these things which we all use nowadays, which is the smartphone, and digitizing those services and going online. Governments need to realise that an 18-page PDF delivered to an iPhone is not a particularly pleasant experience to read or to actually interact with. And of course, what's changed recently with the pandemic is that this has really opened up the door to remote agile working, or a hybrid version of the two. And collectively, I can see this being the state for years to come. So we need to support these ways of working for future generations. Somebody described to me at the start of the pandemic that it was the greatest social experiment in working from home, and only the brave could adopt that strategy, because nobody wanted to go out of central government buildings and move to that home working scenario, because they thought they'd lose control. But actually, COVID forced it upon people, and we've all gone on that journey. We've also seen, obviously, the interagency collaboration with the Government Digital Service launching their regional hubs across the whole of the UK, and getting organisations coming out of central London. And so our building now is not a Department of Work and Pensions building or a HMRC building. There's probably 8 or 10 different tenants of other government organisations that need to work collaboratively within that space. So there's been a lot of good work done through COVID. Some people have been really good at getting things online quickly and doing it. Others have sort of responded proactively. Others have been reactively. And I guess people would say that from that experience, it's been interesting, because there's been a wealth of experience gained, but some of it hasn't been the greatest experience. And so really the sort of experience debt that's been created over that time is something that could be developed for the future. But nevertheless, if you're asking me to score how organisations doing, particularly organisations, if I could call a few out, like the States of Jersey, Department for the Environment and the Home Office, are great examples where they've shown a responsiveness, a sense of urgency, and a need to actually deliver and better engage with customers and citizens in new ways of working.
Great. So yeah, I agree. And what we're hearing as well is that there's lots of change happening, but there's also a lot of will to continue to build on that sort of acceleration of delivery, which maybe was driven by necessity, but now there's the opportunity, there's the awareness of how the technological changes can support changes in service delivery, better UX, better CX, and so on. So with that in mind, let's assume that there is that will and that desire for change and improvement. How can we support those organizations to start working better across those kind of agency boundaries? Because there are some structural, technical, cultural barriers maybe, but how do you see improvement starting, Martin?
Well, I think it's important that when these agencies and government departments want to go out to market, or they're looking for a supplier to provide these services, they don't go out with a tender of, we'll have some more of what we've always had before, because that criteria doesn't work anymore. But government agencies need to look for innovation, and they need to look for suppliers who work in this market space, whose primary focus and competency is in that marketplace. So I would say seek out innovation that can assist you on your journey. And if I'd like to give an example here, just about every single person in the UK likes to talk to somebody in the pub about the weather. It's a national topic of conversation. Well, one of our customers is the Met Office, and clearly through COP26 and with the storms and hurricanes and extreme weather we've had over the last few months, people have been signing up to get their email alerts to find out timely information. By signing up to the Met Office, you can actually cross-fertilise and join a subscriber base of 16 million users and counting. And that allows other government departments that subscriber can join without ever visiting their website or their landing pages. So the ability to gain subscribers, both generated themselves, and more importantly from other organizations, is really key critical. The other thing about the experience is that webs require data sharing across governments, and that does seem to be a problem, as you've highlighted, and we need to move on from where we are and what they're currently constrained by. So there's a lot of large systems in place where you're not getting that sort of reach and that innovation in the marketplace. And we as an organisation are quite fortunate in that we've got just over 400 public sector authorities in the UK using our services, and just over 5,500 globally across the US, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, so most of the English-speaking government world. And we can learn and we can develop best practice across all of that conglomerate to bring innovation, new ideas, best practices to people who are wanting to go on that journey.
Yeah, and it's a powerful process, and with powerful outcomes, and we mentioned it briefly sort of early on in the conversation. And Jonathan, I just wanted to, I think it's worth actually exploring when we talk about benefits, we talk about improvements, we talk about better services for citizens, end users of government being better at joining up, offering more integrated services. Actually, what do some of those benefits look like?
Yeah, I quite often think about what I want, I'm a citizen, I'm a resident, and it's about online experiences. I mean, we still put online in front of things, don't we? When we know what we're talking about. But those experiences which help me improve my life, when either myself, member of my family, a friend or neighbour, when they need help. So when I go online, or my mum goes online, they can get things done quickly, can get the help or the support they need. And what we know from what good on the internet looks like is that needs to be personalized. So it requires me giving a bit of information about myself, so that when I come back to the service provider, they know about me, they know what I've done before, they know other things I'm interested in, so they can create so that transaction, that experience with the government enterprise, government agency is more personalized. And that must be a massive part of transformation now, actually being able to do that. And that's what Granicus, that's what we stand for, is that those personalized government experiences. And I think that's what it means, and that's what we want to see. We want to see more government agencies taking that next step. Government's got good at putting forms online, not everywhere, in a lot of places. But actually, next time I go back to a government website, I want it to say, "Hey, Jonathan, how you doing? Last year you did this, and do you know what's around the corner? And also, you're coming up to a certain age, and you might want to consider doing this, that, and the other." I'm happily give all that information to Facebook. I happily give it to other internet companies. So I think government is well placed to be a safe place for that. For that experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you say, Amazon knows what you want to buy next before you do. So there's a kind of personalization aspect there that is incredibly powerful, and it's not just frivolous impulse purchases, actually life events, lifestyle, significant things that really impact our own lives. So some hugely powerful kind of outcomes if we get this right. I suppose I've never had a conversation with anyone in the public sector that was actively trying to stop progress, that was actively trying to make citizen experiences worse. Yet sometimes progress can be slow, there can be issues, challenges, barriers that stand in the way. And it's important to acknowledge them, because by doing so, you then start to understand maybe how you can overcome them. So, Pete, I'm curious for your take on on this idea of these kind of common barriers, because we do hear them from agency to agency, department to department. There are certain things which seem to sort of slow down or hinder progress around this collaboration, cooperation, joining up piece. So what's your take on what you're hearing and seeing in government?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the theme of the podcast is connected government, but often when we're talking to organisations, we're actually finding legacy systems from a disconnected government, because back when the systems were put into place, there was no collaboration, there was no connection between multiple departments. We're a collaborative partner, and we have an ecosystem that can connect with other solutions to deliver the organisational outcomes. We may not be able to take them the whole hog, but we can certainly work with other suppliers in the marketplace to help government departments understand where they need to get to. A prime example, GDPR as a blocker is massive, because people don't want to change because they see a risk. Everything is a GDPR risk. We mentioned the data sharing earlier. GDPR is always on the forefront of this is an issue to us. And what that ends up is killing or reducing the enthusiasm for the departments to come up with solutions to help them change on their digitalisation journey. And it also starts at the top as well. A lot of the transformation strategies have often been created by the ministerial departments. They've created that strategy without actually talking to other ministerial departments and finding out what they're working on, what they're working towards. And as a result, there's tens of thousands of civil servants out there working towards similar outcomes and goals, but they've no idea that the other department, as Martin said, as part of the Government Hubs programme, they could be sat in the same building, or their department could be based in the same building. They don't understand what each other are working towards. So, and that adds as well, the civil service is often overstretched. We hear from our customers that we know that we're not doing things correctly. We know there's a better way of doing it, but we haven't got the time or the resource to allocate to it, because it will impact the business as usual. It'll impact serving the wider public and the citizens that they're responsible for. So they haven't got the time to allocate to the resource, because the legacy processes are taking so long to interact with the citizens that they haven't got the time to actually improve the service.
Yeah. So look, I've asked you for some of the barriers and challenges. So let's help people out here. Let's start to get practical about how they can overcome some of these and how they can maybe make some progress around the sort of joining up and collaborative government piece. So Pete, let me put you on the spot. Let's get some practical tips on what organizations should be doing and thinking in order to start sort of making progress and improvement in this space.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you my top three, because the list is I've tried to whittle it down as best I can. First and foremost, understand where you currently are on your journey. We have customers engage with us, and we engage with customers when they believe they're in the final mile, but actually they've focused on one process to deliver one outcome, whereas the solution could cover a number of processes that will actually help create a better connected government at the end, rather than the miniature steps along the way, which are still involved in a connected government, a larger strategy, but they've focused too far down one silo and not looked at what else can join the party at this point to help connect and achieve a better process. So understand where you currently are and focus on your end result. Don't worry about the features or the processes along the way. Understand about where you want what your outcome is, and then engage with others as to how to best get there. The old adage of don't reinvent the wheel. People have been there and done that. They've been on this transformation journey. They've replaced legacy systems piece by piece until they're now at a modern cloud-based system that is allowing them to keep up with modern innovation and modern technology as and when it becomes available, rather than replacing systems that are 10, 15 years old potentially. And ultimately collaborate with key stakeholders in other departments, share experiences, and that's not just with other departments, that's with the Crown Commercial Framework has got hundreds of suppliers on them, and talk to us, share experiences with us. We can share experiences with you as well. As Jonathan mentioned earlier, within Granicus, we've got a massive customer base around the world. Other departments have been through this. Other departments have been on this journey, and many still are. So, let us help you, and share your experiences, and together we can work towards the outcomes that you desire.
And that's so true. And I'm even more grateful that you've segued perfectly to me raising the discussions we're going to be having at the Government Transformation Summit, because that is the whole ethos of the summit, is for public sector to share best practice, share what's working, maybe what's not working, drill into some of their successes, some of their challenges. And as we said, Granicus is hosting the discussion table around connected government, and we're looking forward to, we're just days away from the start of the summit now. We're really looking forward to that event. But interested to find out from you, Martin, what is it in those conversations you're sort of interested in sharing? What are those key messages you really want to drive across into civil servants?
Greater engagement, broader consultation, diversity of response, so that everyone gets a share of voice. Too often, the same select group of always comment responders are responding to everything, and they're not hitting the diversity and the broader audience that represents the citizens and the both internal and external stakeholders within organisations. That would be key to me. And if people just took that away as one point of discussion, I'd be a happy man. It would be the greatest day of my working life if they took that fully on board. If they want to come and talk to us about their pressing problems, we can share with them our success stories, anecdotal evidence, empirical and supporting evidence and data if they need it, case studies as well. But we want to understand how we can be part of the solution, how we can help them evolve, be innovative and support their changing needs. And also we would welcome the opportunity to talk to them about a series of roadshows we're running through November. These are Granicus customer experience roadshows for both our existing customers and also potentially new customers. Come and talk to people who use our solutions. Come and learn, how it was done, what the problem was, and how they've developed for the future.
Great. Good to hear that spirit of sharing, collaboration, and with that in mind, Pete, you're going to be listening as well as sort of talking. And so what are you interested in hearing from civil servants and government departments during those conversations?
So ultimately, where have they been successful so far? What programs have they delivered that's helped them transform their department and make the civil servants' processes easier, and also the customer experience better as well? We're talking about the success, talk about their problems as well. Be open and honest. What are the most pressing problems they're facing currently? What is keeping them awake at night? Really getting on the meat on the bone as to how big the problem is and what they're doing currently to help resolve it. And hopefully that will be an organic conversation where we can talk very high level about how we can fit into their transformation program and ultimately support their outcomes, and whether that be a very light touch and of involvement from ourselves, whether it be a full, Granicus experience group project that we undertake with them, or literally just understanding where they are and offering some advice in where they need to be doing to move forward. Great
stuff. We'll look forward to hosting you. We're about to wrap things up, and reflecting on the conversation, I think what's been really striking is that the common theme has always been about end user experience. Yes, we need to fine tune and improve technologies, the inner workings of government structures, programmatic approaches, whatever it might be, but ultimately the focus is always on how can we generate better services that deliver better outcomes for our citizens? And I think that's played through really strongly during the conversations throughout today. So really great to hear that, reassuring to hear that's embedded in the Granicus philosophy as well. So we've probably run up against time here. So all it remains for me to do is to thank all of you for joining us. Pete, Martin, Jonathan, really enjoyed you sharing your insights, hearing how you're working, your thoughts on what's next for sort of public sector services. So thank you to all of you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Thanks very much.
So there we have it. Martin, Jonathan, Pete, thank you again for joining me for that conversation to explore the future of connected government. How can we create better systems and processes that enable more joined up public-facing services that ultimately deliver better outcomes for citizens, which is the name of the game in the public sector? As mentioned, they're going to be joining us as hosts of the Connected Government Roundtable discussion at the Government Transformation Summit on the 22nd of September at Church House in Westminster. Not long to go now. If you'd like to join public sector leaders and your peers for those discussions, all you have to do is follow the link in the show notes below and start your application process. That's about it for now, but we'll be back soon with another conversation with a public sector changemaker. Until then, goodbye.